Well, summer is almost over, and you know what that means. A new season is around the corner, and it seems like in life, things kind of go in seasons or cycles, or maybe linearly, or maybe around in a circle. Depends what you believe. But anyways,
Eternal recurrence.
yeah, this is the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
What's up, Randy?
Yeah, this is an interesting time of year because I remember back when we were students, this was like the worst time of year because summer was coming to an end, getting ready to go back to school. You got to get
Yeah.
all that stuff ready for school, and then you're just sitting in prison for 8 hours a day for the next 9 months.
It's literally what it felt like, didn't it? And then you're staring at the stupid clock at
Hmm.
it, like at the end. I used to at the end of the day, like the second hand would go so slow because I would just stare at it like
Yeah,
an idiot.
absolutely. So that being said, we're going to talk today about not only about how bad it is going back to school, but also, changes in life, seasons of life, things come
Yeah.
and go, and why they happen like that.
Well, you know what's weird too is like I was thinking about this the other day a lot too. Is like when it's funny like how like when you're younger like this they feel so long too because you have very little lived experience anyway. Like, when you're like in middle school and stuff, the summer does feel like a long time. Like enough time to get bored and stuff. But now it's like I feel like now like I blink and it's over.
Hmm. Pretty much, you're waiting for the weather to warm up, and then it warms up for a day, and then it gets oppressively hot for 2 months, and then you're like, please just cool down, and it cools down for a day, and then gets ice cold. Yeah.
I know it's like I keep telling myself there's like all these things I want to do outside. I'm like, I'm gonna get to them when it's nice out, but it's never nice.
Yep. Exactly.
Or I don't know what I mean by it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the way it is in life too, not just the weather. Because like it seems like you try so hard to do this stuff in life and you finally achieve it and it's just a brief moment and then it's all downhill after that. And then you got to climb all the way back up for the briefest of moments and it's all downhill after that.
Well, isn't that kind of, it's funny, like Aristotle and like the ancient philosophers, a lot of them thought that, without like without a some conception of like flourishing or happiness or something that like is the highest good, life is kind of meaningless because it's just a bunch of pursuits of arbitrary ends that we set ourselves. So it's like, like you were saying, like, like, oh, I'll get as soon as I get out of high school, then I'll go to college. I'll get my degree. So you get your degree. And you don't celebrate it because then you're on to the next step. So you're like, oh, now I gotta get a good job. Then I gotta do this. And you just keep chasing things, but there's no like finality to anything. So it's sort of arbitrary unless there is some higher order end.
But it certainly seemed a lot easier then because there was this well-worn path
Yes.
that you could just follow. Do well in school, go to high school, go to university, get married, buy a
Yeah.
house, all these things that you're supposed to do. And it's just like, oh yeah, that's just the way to do. You don't even think about it. You just do that stuff and you're good. But then you get to an age and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now what? I've done all that stuff and it was,
Didn't work.
yeah, it didn't work. And so what do I do now?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's funny too, because like I think like I distinctly remember too, like in like school and stuff, like high school and stuff, like it was nice too because you had a clear path, but you also had a clear indication of how well you were doing. Because there was like, clear comparisons you can
Hmm.
make, clear, you're getting graded on stuff and all. And I feel like that's the other interesting thing is like you get out of that period of your life and it's like then you're not getting there's no clear way to know like how you're doing sometimes.
Hmm.
And it's hard to know if you're like going forward or not or progressing and yeah,
It's really
it's
hard,
difficult.
especially when things take time, because most things that you do or that you're working on take a lot of time, and you can't always tell what direction you're going. And that's really, really tough. Like I found
It
that in a
is.
lot of areas recently where I'm just like, am I making any progress? Like I know I'm doing stuff on a regular basis, but I don't know if I'm making any progress.
I know
And
sometimes it feels like you're just doing stuff.
mhm. And
Literally.
but you know what does has been helpful in that is sometimes I listen to The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale, and he talks about you can just find it on YouTube, just type in Strangest Secret. It's a 30-minute talk he gives, but he talks about this
Oh,
definition
okay.
of success being the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, which is kind of like
Oh, that's where you
flourishing,
got that from. Yeah,
eudaimonia, any
yeah.
of that stuff. And it helps me remember that like it's not actually getting to the end goal that's that exceptional. It's just success is actually just progressively realizing it. So if I'm just showing up regularly, then I am a success. And even if I'm not getting better, I'm still doing what's important.
Well, that's the funny thing too, is like the only way you get better is by doing stuff progressively, right? So it's like doing the actual practice and activity over and over and over again. And it does take time. I think that's one of the hardest things too, is that, it's very easy to look at our lives and to see like what we're dissatisfied with and like to imagine what would make it better. But then realizing those things that we identify that would make it better, they all take time. And all of us expect it to happen immediately. So it's like, it's like as soon as we make a plan, like, okay, I'm gonna start doing this, it's like we then expect the end goal to be like realized like immediately. And then it's not, and then it's like, oh crap, this takes time. It's like a whole nother thing.
Mhm.
And so now you're stuck in like, I don't know. And
And
then you start questioning like, is it worthwhile? And like blah and da.
and it doubly sucks if you're dissatisfied not having that thing that you want, which happens to me all the
Yeah.
time. I find something that I
Yes.
want, which by definition means I don't have it right now. And not only that, but I'm also dissatisfied until I have it. And then, so the whole
Yeah.
time that I don't have it, I'm dissatisfied. And then I finally get it, and I'm like, really, but there's this other thing. So then I'll go to that,
There's this
and
other thing that I need. I gotta get that
and
now.
it ends up just
It is
being
hard.
living in a constant state of dissatisfaction.
It's pretty much what human life is, I think, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's the interesting thing. Like, if we think of life as like this constant sort of progression, right, that we're trying to always like add experiences, add skills, add things, then it is always dissatisfaction because you're always in a state of change, right?
Hmm.
And the problem is, I think that's maybe our problem is like we think that going somewhere is the important thing, and maybe it's not. And I still think this is kind of like our issue with happiness too, is like we think of it as like the state that we're going to achieve rather than something that could be realized now, like in the process. Because I think that's hard for us to figure out because we're so used to, a means to an end or an end type driven action or
Hmm.
driven, processes.
And the concept of doing something good or well or perfect
Yeah.
or any of those things, that has been crazy because like I was telling you before we started recording this, how I've been feeling a bit either sick or like kind of exercise exhaustion, overtraining, that type of thing. And I'm not exactly sure, but I just been feeling like garbage. So I was like, okay, fine, I need to rest. So I stopped all of my workouts and everything. And I'm like, I need to rest. And I'm sitting there on the couch feeling miserable because it's very hard for me to sit still, and I'm thinking I'm doing a terrible time relaxing. And so
Look
I
how bad I
pull,
am at relaxing.
yeah, so I pull out ChatGPT and I'm like, what is going on here? And it's like, you're trying to be perfect relaxing. Like, just relax. You don't need to
That
do
doesn't
it
even make any
perfectly.
sense.
It doesn't need to be awesome. Like, just relax.
Yeah. How can I optimize my relaxing time?
Seriously. Yeah.
No, I feel that way too. Like I don't know. It's like, or the concept of like wasting a day is such a silly thing when you think about it, right? Like, and that's kind of it. And like, you feel like that. I have a hard time too relaxing. I think part of that is because like you get to your regular life is too chaotic and trying to always do stuff and grow and do all this stuff. So when you do try and stop, it's like almost impossible to not feel anxious
Hmm.
that you're not doing anything.
Yeah. And also a lot of the talking heads, all they talk about is do more, 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 which
Here's all we're told
right.
all the
And
time.
so, and
Like,
it's kind of frustrating because I was thinking about that this day, like just recently, how like all these top influencers on everything, all they talk about is doing more, grinding harder, being more productive, more. And it's like that can't be the main goal of life just to do more.
no.
But I think they're just the loudest ones out there.
Probably. Well, I think it's also like it's kind of unfortunately too like what we're told, right? I think all not just from like the influence, but all angles of society. Like that seems to be the main message now is like work as much as you can, and it's like that's fine. It's one thing like when you're young and you're trying to like start out with something, you have the energy, you don't have like other responsibilities. But it's like, are you living life though? Are you doing other things? Are you enjoying your time? Are you doing anything for yourself? Or are you just grinding? Because that sucks. And if you don't have a plan too, it's also pointless because it's not going to get you anywhere else. You're just going to be basically spinning your wheels, making
Hmm.
small, maybe incremental benefits, but not really a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like when they were like, come on, work for Uber, passive income. It's like, that's
Yeah.
a job.
Hashtag passive income. Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this book that I read, Sweet Bean Paste. and it was about this like colony of lepers, okay, in Japan or something
Wow,
like
what a
that.
weird title.
I know, right? And it was about this colony of lepers in Japan, and basically how like they weren't allowed to interact with normal society. So they weren't allowed to have jobs, they weren't allowed to have like any impact on society. And it was like, how do they define their value in life if they aren't able to contribute anything? And it
Yeah,
was,
that is crazy.
yeah, it was a very interesting viewpoint on it, where it's like really their value on life is actually just the experience of it, like being able to see a tree or a flower or to wake up in the morning. That's the value that they bring to life because without that, there's no life.
Well, we have to have a reason, right? That's the interesting thing.
Hmm.
There's also this podcast. There's this podcast. Oh man, no, I can't remember the title. It'll probably come to me later.
It'll
But
come back.
basically,
Yeah.
it's from it's from San Quentin Prison in the United
Hmm.
States.
Yeah.
They started making this podcast, and it's all the inmates inside, and it's about like inmate life inside and stuff like that. Really interesting.
Hmm.
But a lot of the people that are there are life, like they're there for life or very long sentences. And one of the things that's really interesting and listening to is the same kind of thing is like how they try to how so many of them like change both like their whole like outlook on life and like what like life means because now you're living a life where you're trapped in this very, very controlled environment and there's like some stuff to do but not a ton and like how they use the time. It's kind of interesting to see how like people still try to find something to hang on to, some form of like progression, some form of like change and development, even in situations like that is kind of fascinating.
Hmm.
Because like really what is life? If not just experiences, right? And
Hmm.
trying to have some reason to do something. We need an explanation for why we're here.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of time to fill.
There is, right? And we keep making it longer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point because back 100, maybe 200 years ago, the life expectancy was like 30. And
Yeah.
if life ended then, life would be like a very exciting adventure. Because up until 30, like you can't do that much stuff. And back then, people were like they were like presidents and everything by the time they were 30. So yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah. It's funny. They were just talking about that on NPR. They were saying that guy was talking about how like life expectancy was a lot shorter, back in like the 1800s, 1900s. Like it was like, I think like 1900s was like 40. And he's like, it's not that people didn't live to be old because people have lived to be 60, 70, 80 throughout all history. Just most people died when they were born
Hmm.
or, in their
And
infancy, like before 5.
yeah, because there were no
Yeah.
antibiotics. You get an
No.
infection, you're dead.
What's crazy? They didn't know until like the 1940s that when a baby's born with jaundice, it needs water and sunlight.
Yeah, I know.
That's
They don't know.
crazy.
Yeah, they know a lot of
Yeah.
shit. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that we like there. I mean, this whole like this whole thing for psychosomatic medicine or like mind-body medicine, how they don't even teach that in medical school. How they still teach it like what shows up on X-ray is responsible for pain, but there's no correlation between it. And they've done studies in Israel, they've done studies in California, all over the place that things that show up on X-rays, unless it's trauma, like recent trauma related,
Like
it
a
has no,
break or
yeah,
something.
so like if you're in a
Yeah.
car accident and it breaks your neck, yeah, that's the reason for it. But for chronic pain, there's no correlation between findings on X-ray and pain. People with perfectly normal X-rays have pain, and people with crazy stuff on their X-rays have no pain.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's the mind body. I mean, the mind is strong, right? It can make us feel, we can literally develop symptoms if we think we're sick.
Hmm.
I mean, everybody does this to themselves, It's like when you get depressed, you feel terrible. And it's not that you're physically ill, but you
Hmm.
make yourself physically ill. And, it's interesting. I felt like
Well, dude,
for a little
look
while
at
there,
heartbreak. I mean,
yeah,
like you get broken up with and your heart hurts, but nothing
yeah.
happened to your heart. Yeah.
No, physically, no, right? You're fine. It's interesting too, because like I think there was at one point I remember they were doing like studies with like the monks and stuff on like, you know, how like, the really, really skilled
Hmm.
ones could like actually regulate their heart rate,
Hmm.
change their body temperature and stuff. And it was like, it is interesting because you can do so much with just the power of your mind, but we do kind of Western medicine very much does ignore that. It's more focused on like
Well, dude, because there were
very,
two miracles in the mid 1900s. There was penicillin and insulin,
yeah,
and that changed
yeah,
everything. Because before then, medicine was kind of like snake oil. You kind of
yeah,
hoped and prayed it worked. But then all of a sudden, you have antibiotics, which can cure pretty much any infection, and you have insulin, which can stop people from their limbs falling off and dying from diabetes. Like, that's
Yeah.
magic. And all of a sudden, ever
But
since then, people think that medicine is the next best thing, the only
well,
option.
well, it's funny too. Like the greatest thing that like for like longevity anyway was like washing our hands and like getting the sewers underground and stuff.
Yeah, right?
Simple
Seriously,
things. But
seriously.
yeah,
Yeah. So with that, with cycles in life, it seems like we're heading into a new part of the year. I'm still waiting for this year to end because so far this year has been such a
dude,
garbage
right?
year. Yeah,
Yo, you know what I think screwed me up too this because I was having the same thought. It's like I went into 2025, I think way too optimistic.
same. Yes.
That was my problem. And like, and then like as soon as it started, so many freaking things changed. And like a lot of big things changed too that like screwed stuff up as well. I think like with like, developments like with business and stuff like that that just changed really fast.
Hmm.
And and it just like I remember thinking that like in like March or April, I was just like, oh, this year sucks already. Like I don't, and it's like, and
Yeah.
so you just gotta get through it. But yeah,
Yeah, well,
that's I
good
don't
news
know.
is there's only like 4 months left, so then we'll be on to
Which is
another year.
also crazy.
Yeah, hopefully,
God, man.
hopefully things will turn around because it seems like we're having these like catastrophes more and more often. Like there was 9/11, and then there was the housing crisis, and then there's COVID, and then there's who knows what's coming
Dude,
next.
not do you know 9/11 was like that was like 20, almost 25 years ago now.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yep.
They had a ride for it that came through our town just the other day, and I was like, damn, a long time
Dude, but
ago.
it still completely ruins air travel because
Oh yeah.
all those people have to go through security and it does nothing for deterring crimes. And yeah, so there's all of that. And yeah.
Yeah, it's kind
So,
of crazy though. But it
yeah.
does keep that's the other crazy part though, is like it does keep changing, right? Because that's the only constant. So it's like you have to like, I think that's the one thing that I think always screws me up is like when you get down, you think things are final.
Hmm.
But like as soon as you can like, get some sleep or whatever or feel a little better, it's like, you know, there's always more opportunities in the future. It's just figuring out how you want to go about getting there basically
Yeah.
and making it happen,
And it's
which
interesting
is
too because usually when it's the worst and it feels like you can't take it anymore, that's usually the very bottom. And then
yeah.
things turn around from there. But like when things go up to the top, you're like, yes, finally, my life is going right. That's the absolute top, and then it's gonna come crashing down.
Yeah. Well, there's nowhere else for it to go, right?
Yeah,
It's like I think that's why you see all these people with all this money like running around in circles and doing all these crazy things. It's like they have nothing. Where else are they gonna go?
yeah. Money doesn't solve problems.
Nope.
Definitely not.
Be
Definitely
nice if
not.
it did, but
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, and the other thing, so like talking about seasons, and in the Tao Te Ching, it talks about how there's a season for everything. And
yeah.
so, and it's interesting because just because something's not happening to you right now just might mean it's not the season for it. Like I'm always reminded of Wim Hof, who's this Dutch guy who has this breathing method. He popularized ice baths and everything like that. And so he had this interview with Tim Ferriss where he was talking about his younger life where things were not working out at all. His wife commits suicide. He was taking care of like
Oh God,
all
really?
two or three kids himself. Yeah. And like things were not going well. And that's when he learned to do all this breathing and he would swim in the canals in Amsterdam in the winter to
Because
like
he's probably
help
having
get him
panic
through,
attacks all the time, and
yeah, to help get him through
yeah,
this stuff. And so like in this interview with Tim Ferriss, Tim asked him like, what advice do you have, or like what final words do you have? And he said, have faith, because you can't like you'll never know until it happens, but like you need to have faith. And it may have been what would you say to your younger self? I think that's what it was. But like have faith because it wasn't his time back then. When his wife commits suicide and he was doing all this stuff by himself, it wasn't his
yeah,
time. But had he not have had faith back then, he never would have gotten to this point where he has like a huge breathing and ice bath empire and like people all over the world know him and revere him and worship him and all that stuff. So yeah.
yeah. Well, it's hard, I think, because there is something to that, because it's like just having that. You have to have some optimism or faith or something that things will work out. Otherwise, you won't keep going.
Hmm.
And the only way for things to change is to keep going, right? And to keep trying new things and trying things out. It's like wasn't the was it the McDonald's guy or whatever that
Yeah,
was
Ray
like,
Kroc. Yeah.
yeah, desperate for like something to work out because he had failed like a bunch of stuff and like, yeah.
I love that part of the movie. It's called The Founder, and he's he's like in his 50s, 60s, something like that. He's failed every business he started, and he's selling blenders like the smoothie blender machines in like the 1950s from restaurant to restaurant. And he just takes a big gamble on McDonald's, and they're opening up a McDonald's, and at least in the movie, he picks up the dirt, and he's like, "Come on, just this once."
Yeah,
And it's like,
please.
yeah, but that, I mean, I every time I see that, it's something that touches me because it's like, yeah, he never gave up, and eventually something turned in his favor.
Well, it's tough, right? Because we have to have, we want to make sense of our world and ourselves, and like, it also does take some faith because we can't know the future, right? Like, and that's the hardest part too. It's like, like even if you want to start a new endeavor, like you want to learn something, but you don't know by the time you learn it, like what them like it's like when kids go to college and they pick something because they think the market's like, right? Like there's nobody in that field and there's a high demand. It's like, well, by the time you get out, one, it's been 4 years. By the time you're good at it, all these other people are doing the same thing. It's like
Hmm.
you don't know what the future is going to be like. So you can't really tell, is this a good idea or not until it's there, until you have the ability to know. And that's always the tough part. So you kind of do have to have faith that
Hmm.
like something's going to work out. Otherwise, it's just too impossible to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. So that's all I got. You got anything else?
I mean, they'll just keep changing, right?
Hmm. Oh, and
Yeah.
change also, I heard this thing, forget where, but I mean, change is necessary because in order for anything to happen, change has to happen. In order for you to breathe, change has to happen. In order for you to get energy from what you eat, the food has to change. So
Hey,
like,
change is important.
it's just most of the time we think of changes that we don't enjoy. And we're like, how come I have to endure this? But sometimes changes are things that you do enjoy.
Yeah. And
All right.
nothing will be static. So even when you have something you enjoy, it will change eventually. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah,
Get used
gotta
to
deal
it.
with
Yep.
that.
Exactly. So that's all for this episode, seasons and change and all that fun stuff. Hope you guys have fun going back to school or getting ready for Thanksgiving
The
and
fall, all that
Halloween and
stuff.
Christmas. All that fun
Oh
stuff is
God.
coming. I know, right?
And it's such in a row, right?
Is it too early to start shopping for Black Friday?
They probably already have the stuff out.
I know, right?
Dude, it's
Yeah. Yep.
so early anymore.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
if you enjoyed the episode, check it out. We have a whole bunch more episodes. We also have a bunch of shorts now too. Until next time, I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
later, Randy.